This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about famous slaps, our childhood on wheels, and the Happy Days television universe. All that and more as we watch Season 5, Episode 1 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello, and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran. I'm one of your hosts here every week. Joining me, my sister Sophia. How are you?
What's up, Imran? I'm doing well. I was just feeling nostalgic for our childhood, and I kind of feel like going roller skating. Remember when we used to go roller skating like every weekend?
Oh, and they would show like music videos on the display
at
there.
The main rink in Chicago, which doesn't exist anymore. And remember that time there was like a roller skating competition and I won the whole thing?
Wait a minute, that never happened.
Okay, but I was a good skater.
You were better than me, I think. We'll get into our skating history here as we have begun Season 5 of Perfect Strangers.
Woo!
We're on the 5th season of our journey through every episode. Listener, thanks for sticking with us, joining us for the first time, however it is.
We're having fun. We hope you're having fun listening.
The show is still hilarious, and this
good.
Season opener is no different. Season 5, Episode 1, titled Good Skates.
Skates? I was just thinking about skating.
Isn't that funny how that works? Yeah. Good
and
skates.
if you were to open the TV guide back in 1989, you would read the following about this episode. The wrath of the Gaboogies, the Meposian Fib Furies, haunts Larry on the 5th season opener when he lies about his roller skating prowess in order to compete in a charity skate-a-thon and to impress Jennifer.
All right, we're in for a bunch. We're in for some Meposian culture. We're in for a Larry lie.
Yes.
All good ingredients in Perfect Strangers. The cast still featuring, of course, Bronson Pinchot as Balky, Mark Linn-Baker as Larry, Rebecca Arthur as Mary Ann, Melanie Wilson as Jennifer, Sam Anderson as Mr. Sam Gorpley.
And then we have some guest casts, one in particular that we will talk about when he comes up.
He's got a great name.
Yes.
Just wait. So we are now in the fall of the 1989 TV season, September 22nd, 1989. This is generally when your fall TV starts. This is now officially TGIF era.
We jumped to the next season. The previous episode was on May 5th, so they had a bit of a break.
They're like school seasons, right? Always
right.
It was like school seasons from September to like May to spring. But TGIF is full on. You would have seen commercials for it all summer.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of that, some of the exciting TGIF developments later on. But this was the start of it. You're right. And Perfect Strangers, of course, is streaming for free on Amazon Freevee. Everyone go there, watch all the episodes completely free. One little commercial break in the middle. It's not bad at all.
They're beginning to put up original shows on Amazon Freevee.
Oh, wow.
Freevee. Yeah, original Freevee content. So it's very interesting what Amazon's doing over there.
Freevee.
Before we get into the show, we always like to check in every season with the opening credits, right?
Right.
It's what has it changed? Is anything different? Is it longer, shorter?
I think it's not longer. I think it's the same scenes, the same length. The music's the same. We love it. The song's the same. We love it.
Still great songs.
But
still great montage.
There is a little bit of a change.
Oh, there is there?
This season, for the first time, Sam Anderson, Mr. Gorpley, who plays Gorpley, was included in the opening credits on the episodes where he was on.
He got promoted.
He got promoted from the end credits to the beginning credits. Also, this is just a random detail. I don't really know what was behind this, but Rebecca Arthur and Melanie Wilson's names are switched so that now Rebecca's name comes first. And for the first time, and we verified this by watching both season 4 opener and season 5 opener. In season 5, episode 1, all the characters except for Mark Linn-Baker and Bronson Pinchot, all the other actors have their characters' names listed in the opening credits too. So it says like Rebecca Arthur as Mary Ann.
So they did that for Mary Ann, Jennifer, and Gorpley in this episode. That was really the only difference in the opening credits.
As far as we can tell. If anyone knows something else, let us know. But we tried to be especially observant in the beginning of the new seasons. Okay, let's get into Good Skates. Act 1 starts and we have Larry and Balky eating dinner, something we don't often see them doing in the beginning. They're having a nice sit-down dinner together at their dining room table.
Apparently, Balky, who's got a giant glass of milk, has made the dinner for them.
Yeah, because we hear Larry say that, Balky, that was a wonderful Meposian dinner. And then he says, don't spoil it for me by telling me what it was. Oh, my God, so many seasons, and he's still so rude.
He doesn't trust what he's eating when Balky cooks. But he has a right to, because what does Balky say?
Balky says, okay, the pig bladder au jus will be my little secret.
And he makes a little face, which is
our
hilarious.
Opening joke, and Larry's trying not to vomit in his mouth.
And then there's a knock at the door, and they go over to the door. But you'll notice on this table, there is like a dessert tray with a blue lid on top.
Very bright blue, like it takes your attention. I don't know why they made it so intensely blue.
Were they going to have dessert later? What's under there? I'm dying to know.
In fact, a previous version of the script had a little scene about Meposian dessert, so likely that's what was under the blue thing, and it was something ridiculous made with pig parts, I'm sure.
Yeah, there was some kind of pig parts in there for sure. That seems to be the trend.
Yes.
Anyways, we don't get to find out what's under the blue cover. Yeah. It's going to drive me crazy for a little bit.
So there's a knock at the door, and what do we know by season 5? When there's a knock at the door, who is it usually? Of course,
Jennifer and Marianne. However, you notice in this episode, sometimes they just enter the apartment without knocking, and sometimes they knock. It's inconsistent.
And also, listen, we're in season 5. These relationships have been going for a few years, presumably.
Yeah.
They just come to the door and just stand there. There's no embrace. There's no hug.
That's true.
There's no kiss. It's like, what kind of
shot?
It seems very cold, but whatever. I mean, I'm just continuing my theory that Jennifer's not really into Larry, but
Marianne and Balky are good, though.
Marianne and Balky are adorable.
Yeah.
Okay, so the girls are there, and we find out the premise of the show. They have all these papers in their hands, and they're raising money for the Big Brothers. Do we have to explain? Well, Larry explains it in a little bit, but they're raising money for the Big Brothers. And Balky says, I love the Big Brothers. First time I ever saw them on Saturday Night Live, I said to myself, those guys are good.
And we don't have to explain that because Larry corrects him right away this time.
And Balky does the thing again where he looks at
says,
Larry's
no, Balky,
mouth.
That's the Blues Brothers. The Blues Brothers. Of course, that's what that would have been Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, Saturday Night Live. Then Larry goes to explain the Big Brothers is a charitable organization. Men who belong to it act as a big brother to boys who need fathers.
That's right. So the Big Brothers was established in 1904 in America. It's like the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and they pair older people with kids.
Still around, still operating, and they do a lot of good. Apparently, I haven't heard any bad scandal stories,
scandals
right?
from Big Brothers.
And Big Some other things I don't know about.
Yeah.
So Big Brothers still a good place to volunteer.
So that's the first part of the premise. They're raising money for this charity. Second part is, how are they going to raise money? They're going to be roller skating in a 10-hour roller skating marathon. They need pledges to sponsor them for every hour to raise the money. That's how money before our modern days, GoFundMe and whatnot.
It is a fundraiser,
It's a fundraiser.
It's a form of a fundraiser is what a marathon is. But then at this point, they've walked over, sat on the couch, and Balky's like, I love marathons. Will you get to meet Jerry Lewis? And he's confused a marathon for a Jerry Lewis telethon.
And Larry, of course, says marathon, not a telethon. Okay, so what is a Jerry Lewis telethon?
Do you remember at all when this was on TV?
I think a little bit, yeah.
It's basically Jerry Lewis with for muscular dystrophy would do like at 15, 20, I don't know how long he'd be on TV.
Jerry Lewis
for days.
being
the comedian, classic comedian, movie star. And he'd invite a bunch of celebrities on to perform, kind of like a variety show.
It's on television.
It's on TV all while there's people in the back manning phones, answering, taking pledges, landline phones.
And like a little ticker in the side to show how much money's been raised.
This started way back in the 60s. And for a while, you had like big, high name celebrities coming to perform.
In fact, he did these telethons every year on Labor Day.
Oh, that's right. They were Labor Day.
1966 until 2010.
It was like Christmas, right?
Yeah.
It was something people came to look forward to every year.
Yeah.
And like towards the end of it, he got a little old and sweaty.
How long would these telethons go on?
That is a good question. Look up longest.
Up to 21 and a half hours.
There you go. Oh my God.
Get out of the city.
So it'd go from Sunday before Labor Day until late Monday afternoon.
I remember when this was on, you could pop in and see who's performing and pop out. I vaguely do remember these things being on, but they don't really do this anymore. You do it actually on like Twitch streaming.
Yeah.
Or just streaming. People will hold world live, like 24-hour telethons to raise money.
Yep.
Is where it is now.
Yeah.
But back then it was on the TV. So anyways, yes, Larry explains it's a marathon, not a telethon. And the girls are looking for sponsors because what do you do with a marathon? You're like, I'll pledge $1 an hour.
Every hour that you skate.
Right. They say they'd be happy to sponsor them. And suddenly there's a knock on the door.
Oh, another knock. The girls are already there.
Who could this be? Larry gets up, goes to the door, and there is a handsome, very attractive young gentleman at the door, and he goes, hi. And he just kind of walks in because he sees Jennifer and Marianne there.
Yeah, he's looking for Jennifer and Marianne, which begs the question, how did he know where to find them? They're not at their own apartment.
Did she tell him to come up if we're not down? We'll be upset in this. I don't know. That's weird.
Anyway, the girls get very excited when they see him and they get up and they give him hugs and they tell
who is this
Balky
guy?
And Larry that this is Grant Larkin. And they introduce him and Balky says, how you do, you?
He looks like a Grant.
And shakes his hand. And they tell them that Grant is another flight attendant on their crew. So someone they see all the time at work, this very attractive young man. Larry's getting a little nervous.
Oh, my God. The whole time, Larry's face is hilarious in this as he's observing this good-looking guy, Grant, impress the girls.
And Grant says he was looking for the girls because he came by to drop off his pledge sheets for the skate-a-thon. So not only is he this young, attractive flight attendant that they work with all the time, he's also going to be skating in this skate-a-thon.
He's got a big heart.
But again, how did he know where to find them in the building? It's a mystery.
I don't know. Apparently, Grant is also a terrific fundraiser, as we find out from Jennifer. Last year, Grant raised $1,000 for Big Brothers.
$1,000 must have been big money.
That's a lot in 1988, or last year it would have been 88. And Balky's like, you're kidding me, for those tiny little kids. And Grant tries to brush it off. He goes, it was nothing. Jennifer says, you're being modest. And it's just this crazy ad lib where you hear Balky go, don't you ever do that again about him being modest.
And Jennifer also says it was more than anyone else raised. So last year, Grant was the top fundraiser.
They're gushing over Grant, right?
Yes.
Top fundraiser, great looking guy. Larry's watching this all perturbed. Let's take a brief break and talk about Grant Larkin.
Okay, the actor who plays Grant Larkin has a really cool name.
He's got the greatest name I've heard in a while.
His name is Noon Orsatti.
Noon Orsatti. What's
his first name is Noon, like midday.
Noon, if you're out there.
Midday
That's
Orsatti.
An amazing midday Orsatti. Noon Orsatti.
Noon, I love it.
And as we'll talk about, you'll see him skating because he is an adept skater and he's actually a noted stuntman who performs in stunts. He's worked on a lot of Marvel movies and TV shows like Avengers movies.
Amazing.
And Hawkeye. He has been a stunt coordinator and stunt. The guy is still working. And
he comes from a family of stuntmen.
Oh, wow.
His father, Ernie Orsatti, and also his nephew, Frank Orsatti. I thought they were going to be like dawn and dusk Orsatti.
Yes. Late afternoon Orsatti.
Maybe his son is called Afternoon Orsatti.
Oh my God, Afternoon Orsatti definitely needs to be his son's name.
Orsatti Jr. is Afternoon.
But like just the fact that this guy comes, he's got a rich lineage in Hollywood stuntmanning.
Stuntman.
Very cool. Very cool. And he works on Marvel movies.
And there is a stunt that he will perform later in this episode.
I thought it was a stunt double, but I think it's him.
It could be a stunt double, but why would it be? Okay, we'll get to that.
Anyways, so as you can imagine, Larry is watching all this and stewing in his juices, and suddenly he just blurts out, a skate-a-thon, a roller skating marathon. You know, instead of pledging money, I should be skating myself. He just volunteers to skate.
Jennifer, who's been dating Larry for like a few years, looks completely surprised. And she turns to him and she says, do you roller skate?
He's never talked about it before.
And Larry gets into his braggy Larry mode. He goes, do I roller skate? Well, the kids used to call me Wheels Appleton.
Wheels Appleton.
Wheels
What was the last name? So we have Slick Larry Appleton from the card playing.
Yes.
Was it Slick? And now Wheels. I don't know. I can't remember if that was
Appleton.
Wheels Appleton.
And Balky hears that and goes, kids can be so cruel.
Like it's an insult. He's right, though. Kids can be cruel.
Yes, but Larry explains, no, it's a good nickname, and they called him that because he was a terrific skater. And Jennifer's like, I never knew that, of course. So she gives him a pledge sheet. She's like, and Grant's like, that's great. Oh, we could use all the help we could get. I'll see you guys later. And he leaves.
Yeah, he goes, nice meeting you, Wheels. He calls him Wheels.
Nice meeting you, Wheels. And he leaves, and then Marianne turns to Balky and says, why don't you skate too? And Balky's like, I'd love to, but I don't know how. And she turns and goes, maybe Wheels can teach you.
And then Balky goes, would you, Wheels?
And Larry goes, why not?
Why not? All right, so we've set up the plot is moving forward.
Yes. But at this point, we're all believing that Larry's an adept.
Wheels
Appleton has some skating prowess.
So it transitions to, I guess, another night, later that night. I don't know. It's
evening, could be that day, could be
time has
day.
passed. Balky and Larry are on the couch, but they are sitting back to back, butt to butt in the center of the couch with their legs splayed out to the side, one leg up, as they both are wearing old-fashioned black 2x2 roller skates with red wheels, a white stopper, not inline, and they're both tying on their skates, and Balky is very excited. He goes, learning how to skate at the feet of Wheels Appleton. He goes, tell me, Wheels, how long will it take me to learn how to skate?
And Larry goes, I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Balky goes, how long did it take you to learn how to skate?
And Larry says, I don't know. I never had a pair of skates on before in my life.
Oh, bombshell. And Larry is smiling devilishly this whole time. And
like
slowly,
he's so smug and confident.
So smug about it. And it slowly hits Balky, and he turns his head. And he's concerned, right? They sit back and goes, I hate to dig up a can of worms, but don't that mean you lied to Jennifer about being able to skate? Of course,
dig up a can of worms.
You might open a can of worms.
Open a can of worms. Okay, so let's talk about this phrase for a second. He meant to say open a can of worms, but it's very funny because he's digging up a whole can.
Yeah.
You might have heard this, but I wanted to know where this phrase came from. So what it means is to attempt to solve a problem only to make more problems in the process.
Don't open that can of worms.
And
because the worms are going to get out everywhere and you won't be able to get them back in.
Yeah, but exactly. That's the general thought. But like specifically this phrase started in the 1950s or earlier in the U.S. because before there were plastic or styrofoam containers, bait shops used to sell earthworms in these like metal cans with lids on it to the fishermen. And the worms are still alive, right? So once you open the can, all the worms are going to try to escape, and then it becomes this big mess. So once you've opened the can, it's like a big problem.
I mean, that would make sense, but it's so weird how like that became a saying.
Yeah, it sure is.
But it does describe
open a can of worms. But
don't open a can of worms.
It's like, was fishing so prominent that everyone just understood this?
I think so. I feel like everybody was fishing. Yeah, it definitely comes from the fishing culture. So
okay, well, I've heard it a lot. I never really looked into it, so I wanted to get the background on that. All right, so back to the line. Balky says, I hate to dig up a can of worms, but that means you lied to Jennifer about being able to skate. And here's the main problem. And Larry says, what was I supposed to do? He's jealous of Grant. Grant raised all that money and seems like a big hero for Jennifer. And Larry needs to be Jennifer's hero, of course. And Becky says, you can't keep her by lying. Lord knows you've tried.
That's great.
And he points out that every time Larry lies to impress Jennifer, he winds up with a pocket full of Baba Sticky.
Another great line.
And Balky says, it's time to talk about reality. It's time to talk about the hard facts. It's time to talk about the wrath of the Gaboogies.
Oh boy, the Gaboogies.
So here we're going to learn something Meposian.
I knew they had something to do with this.
So Balky explains, okay? Who are the Gaboogies? And he says, the Meposian Fib Furies, Eva, Magda, and Jaja. They are the daughters of Virtash, god of truth, and his lovely wife, Succotash.
That's a good joke.
Each of the Gaboogies has one penetrating eye right in the middle of her nose bridge. that sees everything, and they punish those who dishonor truth by telling lies.
Oh, and the whole time Larry's just looking at him,
Smug.
totally smug, and just dismissing it. And he's just like, fascinating. Okay, that's a couple of good jokes. Let's talk about the names of the Gaboogies.
Yes,
because
a little
I
Easter egg here.
Caught that right away because I used to grow up watching a little show called Green Acres. Our father, it was one of his favorite shows.
Place for me.
One of his favorite shows, starring Eva Gabor as a rich New York socialite who falls for a farmer and moves out to farmland and lives. And it's like two opposite people, right? It's actually very good with Arnold the Pig, who is referenced in Pulp Fiction. I mean, this is pop culture icons history. So I got that these were the Gabor sisters.
So the Gabor sisters, who are the Gabor sisters?
The only other thing I know is that Zsa Zsa Gabor would slap people every week, left and right. There's some story about Zsa Zsa Gabor slapped this guy. She slapped this actor. She slapped the cop.
Yeah, no, it was a cop. She got in the headlines for slapping a police officer.
It was a police officer.
Okay, back up. So there were three sisters. They were Hungarian actresses, Eva, Magda, and Zsa Zsa, the same names they used for the Gaboogies. Eva was best known for Green Acres, as you explained, which was a show in the 60s, a comedy. Okay, so Zsa Zsa Gabor was also a lot in the headlines. She actually died in 2017. I think she was the last one to die. In the summer of 1989, she slapped a Beverly Hills police officer after she was stopped for a traffic violation.
Oh my God, it was the summer right before the show aired.
Which is why their names would have been in the popular culture, the Gabor sisters, which is probably why they wrote them as the Gaboogie names.
That is hilarious because I definitely remember Zsa Zsa Gabor slapping
it was a big deal.
It was a big deal. So that's great. The Gaboogies are the Gabor sisters.
The Gaboogies are the Gabor sisters. Okay, back to the scene. So we've just learned that there are these like fib furies.
Yes.
And they'll punish people for lying. Furies. And Larry is still grim, and you know how he is. He's so rude about me posing things still. And he says, I'm sure I'll be safe from the wrath of the Gaboogies because I am doing a good thing. I am helping children. He feels like his lie is validated because it's for a good cause or he can swing it that way. And he says, and even Ava, Magda, and Zsa Zsa won't mind if I tell a teeny tiny, itsy bitsy little
child voice
white
here too.
Lie. And he flicks his fingers. He's like making a little, a small sign with his hand, and then he pops it.
Pop. And Balky is, he's trying to he's like, my cousin. And then Larry just goes, children, helping little children. And at one point, Balky pretends to cradle a baby in his arms. And he's like, cousin, I know there's an error in logic here somewhere. And he's waving his finger around. He goes, but I can't put my finger on it. And waving his finger around. And Larry just grabs his finger and goes, well, while you're trying to figure out where to put your finger, why don't we learn how to skate?
Okay, so here starts the beginning of the first physical comedy bit.
First bit of physical comedy is fantastic.
Well, he's like, how are we going to learn to skate? And Larry's big plan is that the fastest way to learn is to put on the skates and never take them off.
That is
for like days until the marathon.
That's a good plan.
And so they both stand up in front of the couch. They're still like on a carpet thing, and they're standing. They're just standing. They're still on their feet.
Yeah.
And Larry's like, look, see what I tell you. And Balky's like, we're not moving. And he says, if the sport were roller standing, we'd get a 10. And he laughs at his own joke. So then they have to try to start moving. Okay. So they both turn to their right, like toward the apartment front door. And they start these little, like, tiny shuffle steps on the carpet, just straight up and down, like baby.
Just a little march, like a little tiny march, baby step march. And you hear the skates,
no pushing, no gliding, just like boop, boop,
and they're both in rhythm, and it's hilarious.
In unison.
Even the detail where when they're first starting, they're on the rug, right? And then when Balky gets to the hardwood, he stumbles a little bit and then gets back. And then when Larry gets to the hardwood, he stumbles a little bit.
But they're still up.
But then they're still up and they're still just chunk.
On the hardwood,
so funny. Balky's arms are flying around and then just slowly they make their way to the door. Going chunk.
They're like baby marching in unison up and down on skates. And so they've
Larry's
made
we're doing great.
They've made their way around. Now they're behind the couch and they're facing the kitchen. And Larry's like so proud of themselves. And Balky says, well, we're not roller skating. We're just roller walking technically.
Yes.
And Larry's like, okay, we need a little speed. And so he pushes Balky forward, and he goes across the floor toward the kitchen, like quite fast.
But without warning, Balky, he just turns him and shoves him, and
Pushes
Balky's
him.
like, ah!
Yeah.
As he grabs the little part of the column there.
And he's not happy about it.
And Larry's like, see? And Balky is very upset.
And then Larry tries to go meet him, but he's doing that shuffle roller walking thing. Yeah. And he's like, it's just like learning to ride a bicycle. All we need is speed. And he goes, now you give me a push. And then Balky's like happy to give him a push.
Yes.
Angrily turns him around, pushes him toward the front door of the apartment where, of course, Marianne happens to just enter without knocking. Yes. Opens the front door, walks in, and Larry rolls right out of the front door, and then we hear this like tumbling downstairs and him screaming. He's like, and then we hear and then finally we hear him from off screen go, I'm fine. And Marianne just looks out the door and she goes, Larry's good.
That's a killer line too, Marianne. I love her line.
And we close that scene. That whole scene was just physical comedy.
All right, so then we transition. We're at the Chronicle now. They got to go to work.
Yes, probably the next day or something. Yeah.
And they still have these skates on.
Yeah.
As we see Larry over by the mail table, and he has a file, and then the phone rings. That's over by his desk.
And this is part 2 of physical comedy.
Physical comedy. Yeah. At first, he slowly, so he does things that you've done when you've learned roller skating, which is hilarious.
Yes,
he stumbles halfway across to the phone. The phone is constantly ringing. And then he spins around, and then he finally gets his stability. And then he does that thing where you move your legs and you're going backwards, and you don't know that. Well, you're like, wait, why am I going backwards?
Yeah.
When you meant to go forward. So he does that. Finally pushes himself off, but then ends up over by the staircase facing it and does a splits.
Yes.
As he goes down while he's hanging onto the staircase.
It's just like laugh after laugh after laugh. Yes.
Pulls himself up, turns around, and then again he does this thing that I love always. He's reaching for the phone and he just drops out of the frame, falls down, pops back up, answers the phone. Of course, by that point, the person is hung up.
Yes.
Which is the joke. But, oh my God, I laughed so hard because that whole thing about going backwards, I've done that so many times. Like, what?
So we just watched this like whole thing of Larry struggling on these skates. We're laughing. And then he finally pulls himself up, and then the shot widens out and we see Balky like glide in elegantly from the back, and he's doing spins. He's on one foot, his arms in a flourish, like just gently gliding around like a professional skater.
It looks amazing. He skates by Larry and gives him his mail, and then does a little backwards skate to some file cabinets, and then just lays down on his back, puts his legs up, crosses his legs, and he's like, skating is so easy. Oh no, first he goes, that's your mail, by the way. And he goes, skating is so simple.
And so grand. He's back on his feet now. He's like doing his arm flourishing and just skating around easily and beautifully around the basement.
It's quite graceful.
And he's saying about how great it is. And he says, so free, so fluid, so swan-like. And he does a few more twists and he's like, so light, so airy. And then he looks straight at Cousin Larry and goes, so cholesterol free.
Yeah, he ends up right next to him for that line, which is great. And Larry just goes, I told you it was easy to learn. Just completely clumsily trying to get back to the mail table as Balky skates around gracefully. And then Balky skates around with this big swooping thing. They're both at the mail table, and Mr. Gorpley enters from behind, and he looks at both of them as Larry is stumbling, and he's like, you're both on roller skates. Did I miss a memo?
The snide Mr. Gorpley remarks. Balky and Larry explain to him that they're raising money for charity, and Gorpley's like, charity begins at home. Practice there. And Larry's like, no, it's a good cause. We're in a skate-a-thon, big brothers. Gorpley's like, you? I hope they don't need much money. And Larry's like, well, for your information, I have collected the most pledges. And Gorpley just laughs. He's like, of course you did. Nobody thinks you'll finish.
And the whole time Larry is like, he stands up straight for a second and then stumbles. He stands up
the
and
whole
then he stumbles.
Conversation, yeah.
He's trying to keep his balance the whole time as he chases
Such good comedy.
Gorpley. Gorpley walks out laughing at him, and Larry follows him going, I'm going to finish the 10 hours and slams into the door.
I'm going to raise more money than anyone else. And he Gorpley slams the door.
And then it's so great because Larry stumbles back and finally Balky just puts his hands up and steadies him.
Yeah.
Because that's all he needed. He just kept, Mark Lindbaker is so funny stumbling around on these skates.
And then, Balky has steadied him, got him upright, and then he hooks his arm in Larry's arm. And as he talks, he like slowly skates forward, but he's skating, but Larry's just standing
he's just
straight
kind of pulling
up.
him.
He's pulling him, going with him. He tells him he doesn't think he's going to end up raising all the money because he's not lying to help children. He's lying to impress Jennifer.
Yes.
So like the reason behind the lie is also important, right?
Yeah.
It's really to impress Jennifer. And he says, until you tell the truth, Ava, Magda, and Jaja will continue to be a thorn in your sideburns.
Well, the thorn in your side.
The thorn in your side.
The burns.
The burns. It's good. It's good. It's good. And Larry's determined that he's going to impress Jennifer. And he says, and if the Gaboogies think they can stop me, let them try.
Oh, defiant.
Oh, snap.
He's challenging the Gaboogies, Larry. Balky knows this is not good. He runs away, hides behind Larry's desk.
Yeah.
And as Larry stands there, taking a shot. This is not good. You do not defy the Gaboogies.
Come on, ladies, take your best shot. And he stands there. Now he's like in the open part of the basement, not by any furniture. And nothing happens for a moment. And he goes, I thought not. Pretty smug. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he loses his footing underneath him and he falls down. And then Balky skates over to him and like very smoothly
slides down next to him. It's a
lie
great
down
move.
next to him. He says, cousin, you're lucky. That was Magda. She's the nicest one.
The Gaboogies did get him.
And we fade out to end Act 1.
Listener, join the conversation. Join our Facebook group. It's a great place to geek out, nerd out on Perfect Strangers. I post threads of every episode. We're recording a couple of weeks ahead of time, so you can watch the episode, leave your comments, observations, questions, memories from when you first saw the show, what the show evokes for you, what it means for you. We want to hear all that. And you're going to meet other Perfect Strangers fans who listen to this podcast and love the cousins as much as we do, and who are also very nerdy and dive into stupid things in the background, which is my favorite part.
It's so fun. So fun to read and watch that community grow. So come join us. All right, well, we're moving on to Act 2, and now we're at the roller rink. So we start with an establishing exterior shot of a place called Skateland, and there's a sign out front that says Chicago Big Brothers Skate-a-thon. I guess they don't care about Big Sisters back then, but just Big Brothers Skate-a-thon. Apparently, this place exterior is not in Chicago.
Of course it isn't.
We know this for a couple of reasons. One, because we used to skate often at one of the main roller rinks in Chicago that doesn't exist anymore.
Rest in peace. Shout out to Rainbow Roller Rink on the north side.
This should have been filmed there.
God, I had many birthday parties of friends that I went to skate there with.
We'll talk about that later. But apparently the one that they show, this Skateland, is a rink in Northridge, which is in the San Fernando Valley area of LA County.
Ooh.
So they're filming this in LA.
Of course.
But you know how to hide that? You put a sign out front that says Chicago Big Brothers Skate-a-thon.
Now it's in Chicago.
And apparently this particular roller rink has appeared in many television shows and films and stuff, of course, because it's LA.
We are now inside the roller rink, which is like, this is kind of a bigger new set for this show. It doesn't look like it's probably a repeated space, but there's like half a roller rink in shot, right?
Do you think that was inside the Northridge roller rink, or they made that set?
This is a set. This is definitely a set. But there's a big countdown clock. They're going to be skating for 10 hours. Larry, Balky, Jennifer, and Mary all come in, and Balky is wearing a Chicago Cubs jersey and shorts and like suspenders.
Shorts
yes. And Larry has a fun black and pink suit, and the girls they're all decked out. They're holding their skates. Yeah. And we find out Larry, first of all, Larry disses on the rink because he's lying. He's like, not a professional rink, but I guess it'll have to do.
Yeah.
But we find out Larry managed to raise $1,200 in pledges. That is more than Grant. When he finds this out, he replies, I guess some of us have it and some of us don't.
Oh, gosh. Still so smug.
And then Balky imitating him goes, and some of us can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
He's so smug, and Balky's trying to point that out to him.
And so the girls step away to put on their skates, and then Grant comes by skating backwards
with a
all
flourish,
fancy,
all
with a
fancy
flourish.
skating.
And he's like, "Hi, Wheels." Calls him Wheels. He's like, "I'll catch you later." And then he skates off. So Wheels is serious here.
Wheels is a real deal
learned
skater.
in 2 seconds that look at him go.
Yeah, of course. He loves it. Of course, he's a charming, good-looking flight attendant. Of course, he knows how to roller skate.
He can do everything really well.
Everything comes easy to Noon.
Noon is good.
Okay, so Larry's like a little bit worried at this point, and Balky tells him, "This is your last chance to tell Jennifer the truth." He looks around. He says, "The air is thick with gaboogies." And Larry is still not having this gaboogie stuff. So he says, "Oh, another gaboogie update." And he goes, "You know, Balky, I'm beginning to understand why on Mypos a sheep can run for public office." Oh my goodness. So disrespectful.
These are just backwards, uncivilized people.
So disrespectful. Well, you think after 3 years he has some level, 4 years, he has some level of respect.
How many Myposian things have saved his butt so far?
Exactly.
Come on, Larry. Nope, he's still old Larry. Anyways, the scene dissolves. The skate-a-thon is underway. You see the clock ticking. We hear the fun ragtimey, bouncy cartoon music.
We heard it when they played baseball.
Yeah.
We heard it a few times before this. Yeah.
So time is ticking by. Larry is stumbling as Grant skates by on one leg in a crouch.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
It's like a montage of the marathon.
It's like 3 hours
happening.
left and 1 hour left.
And we see people first in the beginning, like a lot of people skating. Then it's fewer and people have come out. Like Jennifer and Marianne
They're
are out at
apparently.
some point.
I don't know what happened. Why couldn't they hang in there?
I don't know.
They're healthy young women. They couldn't.
Are you allowed to go to the bathroom in the 10 hours?
Maybe that's the problem.
I
probably
think you should be.
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
Anyways, the clock is down. The time is almost up, and the last time it's the home stretch. The last time we see him.
But wait, in this montage, so first we see everyone skating and people are doing fun stuff. Grant's still flourishing. Then we see fewer people. And in the later shots of the montage, one has Balky pulling Larry backward by his waist. And then one has him pushing him. Yeah,
that's right. It progressively gets by the
Larry's
last
doing scene in the montage, Larry is just squatting and Balky's just pushing him from behind.
And Larry's like, "Are we moving?"
Yeah,
he is exhausted. He's sweating, and then Grant skates by backwards. Right?
Yeah, he's still doing
dancing.
Tricks and stuff.
The guy counts down. Buzzer. It's over. They skated the 10 hours. Oh my Lord!
They made it. Yeah.
Larry collapses. He goes, "I did it. I
raised more money than Grant."
Oh, there's also this weird scene with Marianne and Jennifer.
Very weird.
During this montage. Do you want to talk about that?
Right as the 20-second countdown at the very end, Jennifer and Marianne are off to the side, and Jennifer's like, "You can do it, Larry." And Mary goes, "Go, Balky." And then Jennifer gets angry. She goes, "Go, Larry." And Marianne says, "Go, Balky." And then Jennifer says, "Why can't you ever cheer for my boyfriend?" And Marianne just looks at her and goes, "Oh, okay." And then very angrily goes, "Go, Larry!"
What?
I don't understand.
What was that? Are they taking a running tally of who cheers for his boyfriend? How many times?
So I think a previous version of the script had a longer thing here that explained it, but this just turned out to be very weird.
It's weird when she gets mad and she goes, "Go, Larry!"
Also,
Mary.
Why would you even say, "Why can't you ever cheer for my boyfriend?" They're
for my boyfriend?
All friends. I don't get it.
Oh, it was strange, but it was a thing that happened. So Marianne, Jennifer run over to collapse Larry, and she leans down and she tells him he was wonderful, this is all he wanted to hear coming from Jennifer.
He's like, "Jennifer thinks I'm wonderful."
Balky, did you hear that? Marianne goes, "You were wonderful too, Balky." And when Balky adds, "And my heart is pure," we'll dig at Larry there. Jennifer says she's proud of him. He raised the most money, to which he's like, "Oh, I did? I didn't even know that."
Yeah.
I didn't. And he gets up and he does this whole ramble about, "Well, it wasn't about who raised the most money. I never thought of this as a competition.
Yeah, right.
I just welcome the opportunity to unselfishly devote my time and skating ability to those in need."
The lies.
So far,
he's feeling great. He won.
Larry has won. Larry has won his plan.
The Gaboogies didn't even get him.
The Gaboogies step in now when we hear a drum roll and the announcer comes out and he has an announcement. He says, "Cunningham Hardware has offered to donate $500 to the Big Brothers in the name of the person who can jump the most barrels."
And we see people rolling out these barrels into the middle of the skate floor.
4 barrels.
So here's Easter egg.
Cunningham Hardware.
What is Cunningham Hardware? We've heard it before. They sponsored the game show, or
That's right.
the toilet seat in the game show.
The hardware store in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
From Happy Days, the Cunningham family.
Yes, ran a hardware store.
Howard and Howard Cunningham.
Yep. So we hear this every now and then. They've been mentioned in other episodes.
Well, they worked on Happy Days,
right?
So I love when they do that. It's in the Happy Days universe. That's very interesting. That means Laverne and Shirley also exist. Mork and Mindy exists in this universe.
That's amazing.
You think about
actually.
That. The same
From
universe.
Happy Days, Mork and Mindy to Family Matters, it's all one universe.
Yes. Whoa! I think I just blew my mind. That is a shared universe.
Yeah, that's good.
So anyways, this guy makes this announcement, and Larry just blows it up. He's like, well, their money is safe. After 10 hours, nobody's got the energy to do that. And Grant's sitting there, and he's looking at it, and then he just goes...
Grant is still fresh as a baby.
Oh, he's not even sweating. He's wearing a sweater, and there's not a drop of sweat on him. No. I don't understand. He goes... I do.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. Everyone showed up in like workout clothes.
Why
and
is Grant wearing a sweater?
In slacks and like khakis and a sweater.
Just to show he's so cool that he doesn't even sweat after skating 10 hours. Yeah. I hate people like Grant.
So Grant's like, I'll give it a shot.
I'm with Larry.
And then the girls go nuts over that. They're like, this is so exciting. And they go to like Marianne has this old school photo camera with film and a flash and all that.
Oh my God, that's right.
She's like, let me go over there to get a good picture. And she goes off screen, and they leave the scene, and Larry is like, "What the heck? I did all this to win the freaking skate-a-thon. I won, but they're off there taking picture of Grant now.
Yeah, this is a problem.
And he can't handle that.
This is a problem.
So then we pan out to see this jump. And he kind of like circles the ring.
Grant is doing the jump. He does Noon or Sadi skating around
the exterior of the rink, and he finally like stops at the beginning of the lengthwise, and he gears up. He runs, skates fast, and then he clears the barrels. He jumps 4 barrels and lands and ends up by the girls. And at first, I thought this was like a stunt guy, but then when you told me and I looked up this guy, that's definitely Noon or Sadi. I mean, I could see why you would think it was a stunt because you can't see his face on the actual jump.
It's just the way it was filmed, though. You see the side of it.
But I'm pretty sure it's him because that's probably why they got him.
And it's not a hard jump, right?
And also, they remember how they filmed this live in front of an audience, and they prided themselves on getting it in one take to get the real response. So I'm sure they wouldn't want to stop to like replace a stunt guy. That's probably why they got it.
To their credit, like the dude jumps the barrels on roller skates. It's pretty impressive.
4 barrels. So then a little weird thing happens. Okay. So like he jumps the barrels. Everyone in the place goes nuts. They're like cheering for him.
Then he goes over by the girls and they hug him, right?
Girls are hugging him. Larry's like, what? And Balky takes Larry and skates off to one side. And he's like, look, all your lying was for nothing, but it's not because like he's still one-upping you. I guess that's what he meant. And
he doesn't win because Grant now just made more money.
Grant just upped the thing. So Balky tells Larry it's still not too late to save yourself from the wrath of the Gaboogies. All he has to do is tell Jennifer the truth.
And he's about to.
And Larry's like, maybe you're right. And he's considering it, but then Jennifer runs up to him and says a very strange thing to say to your boyfriend, your supposed boyfriend. She goes, did you see Grant fly over those barrels? It was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. She's like gushing over Grant. And
why would you say this to Larry right now, Jennifer?
Larry's heart.
Do you hear yourself, Jennifer Lyons?
And Larry's standing there. He's completely drenched in sweat. He's tired from 10 hours of skating. He barely made it. And he's hearing Jennifer say this, and he just turns to the middle of the room and he goes, add another barrel.
Of course,
there's no way
why?
He is determined to one up Grant.
Jennifer caused this. And Jennifer's like, Larry, you jump barrels? And Larry goes, I'm from Wisconsin, the barrel jumping state. He's just making up stuff. It's so funny.
Of course.
And she goes, I'm going to get Marianne's camera. She runs off, and Balky is like, cousin, I can't let you do this. He's trying to stop him. He goes, the Gaboogies, I have a feeling, have just been waiting to get you over a barrel. But Larry's like, he can't let Grant beat him. He's trying to get past Balky. Balky's stopping him, and then suddenly Larry goes, oh, I see them. I see the Furies.
He goes, oh my lord.
Oh, yeah. He gives you an oh my lord. He goes, I see the Furies. Bucky's like, where? And Larry goes, over there. He points to his right. Bucky turns, and then he just shoves him. So Bucky goes like flying over the wall in the skating rink.
A little waist-length wall.
The obstacles are out of the way, and now Larry can get ready for a jump of 5 barrels. They've added a barrel also because he's got to do more.
And we see Balky come back up over the wall to watch this.
And then you see the girls cheering him on, and Grant is also cheering him on.
Grant's like, go, you got this, Wheels.
He goes, come on, Wheels.
Come on, Wheels.
He's totally behind Larry trying to break his record.
What a lovely young man that
Meanwhile, Larry is all about revenge and one-upping a petty thing.
Yeah.
Grant's cheering for Wheels.
Grant has no animosity toward Larry.
No, he never did. He should have known better. Anyways, Larry makes his approach. He's skating a little better, which is something you notice.
Yeah, suddenly he skates better as he goes around the perimeter to speed up.
Listen, they've been skating for 10 hours. You're going to get better. You're going to get better.
Maybe.
Same shot of him approaching, same shot of the POV of approaching the barrels. And he makes his jump. It's not really a jump. It's a dive.
His feet don't really leave the ground, but the top of him dives
face
forward
on the barrels and rolls. All the barrels roll and deposit his body like an assembly line, like a thing in a factory, right? What are those? And face plants right into the floor, and his legs are still in the barrel, and it's really funny because he just went down hard. And I think that
so embarrassing.
And it's Mark Lynn Baker doing his stunt,
for sure,
which is good. Like amazing physical comedy.
Yes. Okay. So that ends the skate-a-thon.
He did not raise more money than Grant after all.
Grant is still the hero, he thinks. So then we cut to the next scene, and it's later that evening in the apartment. The front door opens, and we see Jennifer and Marianne Balke carrying Larry on their shoulders in a line. And everyone else has their skates slung over their shoulders, but Larry's still wearing them on his feet. And they carry him to the couch and from the back, drop him over, and he just plops down, lying down on the couch cushions. Balky and Marianne sort of squat down behind the couch to look over, and Jennifer goes to the side of the couch and bends down next to Larry's head to console him. He's like a mess. He's a hot mess on this couch. And she said, I'm sure you're a good skater, but you were crazy to try to jump that many barrels. And this is when Larry finally decides to fess up. And he just says, from his, he's like a miserable heap on the couch. He just lifts his head and he tells Jennifer he has a confession to make. And he says, until 4 days ago, I never skated before in my life. And Wisconsin is actually the dairy state. And I'm not 5'10".
It's just the truth is just pouring out of him. To which Balky goes, boy, when you come clean, you leave a ring around the tub.
Yeah.
There's so much dirt that came out and it's still sticking there. That's pretty funny. And Jennifer wants to know why would he lie to her?
Of course.
Fair question. And Larry admits being jealous of Grant. And Jennifer's like, jealous of Grant? He's a happily married man. And Larry's like, you never told me that. And she goes, I didn't think it was important. And he admits to making a fool of himself.
I love this 1989 family-friendly world in which once you know the other guy's married, he's no longer a threat somehow.
No, of course, he's no longer a threat.
That's not real life.
Of course, he's married.
Because he's committed married. He
to
belongs someone else. He would never...
You could be as flirty as you want.
Yeah, I don't know. But there was a sweet, innocent, family-friendly TGIF world.
Yeah.
Where, of course, he's married.
You can't really still get away with that kind of setup these days.
No.
Can you? Anyway, so happily married man gets him off the hook immediately.
Yeah.
Right.
And so Larry says, I guess I made a fool out of myself. And Jennifer says, well, you didn't. Except for maybe the barrel jumping thing, which was the big thing. But she's still quite happy with him. She says, at least you raised a lot of money for the Big Brothers. Thank you for that. She gives him a kiss.
Yeah, he still did that.
So maybe she does like him.
And Marianne tells Balky she had a wonderful time. And she asks, maybe tomorrow you can come up and we can play roller derby. Is this racy?
A little racy for TGIF.
And then Balky goes, I'm counting the moments, my little lamb shank. It's very cute.
Very cute. He's called her
names.
Shish kebab, lamb kebab,
lamb shank. I love his nicknames for her.
And so the girls leave, they say, we'll see you tomorrow as they're leaving. And Marianne says, oh, yeah. And by then I'll have the pictures developed and then we can relive the whole thing.
Remember when you had to do that? Remember when you had to take a picture
day.
and it wasn't instantly on a thing you had and you didn't know it was going to be good?
Do we have to explain that? Maybe I think most of our listeners remember film cameras.
Developing place and give it to them and leave and then have to come back days later.
We did not have instant ability to view the pictures.
You know what? Maybe the shot you wanted, it was complete garbage
or
and it
your
didn't come out.
finger was in the way or it was blurry or
not
the lights
finding out
messed
for
up.
days.
You don't know how they come out at all.
We had it rough. You have no idea.
We have like drawers full of crappy photographs because we didn't know what we were doing then.
4K high definition video on a thing that's in your pocket is insane.
See it right away.
It blows my mind.
Yeah.
Appreciate those kind of things, people. Anyways, yeah. So she goes, oh, I'll have the pictures. And Larry goes, oh, good. Of course, he does not want to see the pictures. And we hear lesson time music.
Yes. And Balky sits on the top of the couch to deliver this lesson with Larry. The music goes on. Larry says, I never should have lied, Balky. And Balky says, that is correct. And Larry says, you were right. And Balky says, that is correct. And Larry says, when I lie, something bad happens. And Balky says, well, the Gaboogies make sure of that. And then Larry gets worried for a minute. He says, are they still here? And Balky says, no, they slipped out the moment you told the truth. And then here's the last parting joke of the episode. He says, they're probably on their way back to Washington.
The Fib Furies
which
DC
is a joke that still holds up today.
That joke totally holds up. That joke is crazy and still relevant. But you know what? With government, it's always going to be relevant. Solid burn on Washington.
Yes. And roll credits.
Listener, check out our merch shop if you want to get some fun swag and be the cool kid on the block with a Dance of Joy t-shirt or tote bag or mug or hoodie or cell phone case. Visit danceofjoypod.com/shop and you will have something to start a conversation with. That's all. You know what? Everybody wants something like that. Okay, what we talked about, this is TGIF is now on. They got a new...
So with this episode, with the beginning of season 5, this Perfect Strangers was on ABC, was now in the 9 p.m. Eastern time slot on Friday nights. Of course, we always watched everything in Central Time, so it was a little bit earlier for us. And a couple other changes that happened with the start of this season is that Harriet Winslow, Jo Marie Peyton France, from now on is no longer on Perfect Strangers because this season they started Family Matters, which was the spin-off series, which was about the Winslow family.
Oh, and you would have seen it right before this episode on that evening.
Right. This very night, September, whatever it was. So you would have seen Family Matters first, the pilot episode, and then this episode with the skating. And Paula A. Roth, who was producer and a writer on Perfect Strangers, also worked on Family Matters, as did a bunch of the other sort of producers and writers and directors. A lot of them shared and went to Family Matters.
So it was the spinoff, and of course there's going to be crossover people working, and I believe even in the opening credits they bike over the bridge. You see the cousin's boat under. It's like the very first shot of the credits, right? That bridge downtown.
I remember that now.
But they're biking over it, so.
And here's a little fun fact. Balky and Larry originally were supposed to be in that pilot episode of Family Matters.
I never knew that.
They had a brief little scene that was supposed to be at the beginning of the show, but it ended up getting cut.
Oh.
So that's why, people don't realize that Family Matters was a spinoff of Perfect Strangers. It would have established
where they came from real quickly in the beginning.
Right.
If they left that in.
If you
oh my God.
knew that. But Family Matters became such a huge thing because of Steve Urkel, in its own right, that I think it would have been easy for people now who remember watching Family Matters. And it was kind of a different feel of a show. It was a black family, so it might have had a different audience. There was a nerd, there were children. Might have had
a lot of people still to this day are blown away when you're like, oh, spin off of Perfect Strangers.
Exactly.
Because they remember Urkel, Family Matters, sometimes a little bit more.
They remember Urkel more than Harriet Winslow, who was on Perfect Strangers.
Do we know the original TGIF lineup that would have aired this evening? Let's find out.
We do.
Oh, we do.
So on this evening, it began with at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, with Full House.
Oh, my God.
Then we had Family Matters and Perfect Strangers in the middle.
Yeah.
And then we ended with Just the 10 of Us. So TGIF was a 2-hour event, 4 shows, four half-hour shows. Just the 10 of Us, which itself was a spin-off
of Growing Pains.
Growing Pains.
Yes, the coach. I believe the coach was on Growing Pains.
Okay.
And that was the coach's family. Who had 10 children. He had like 9 daughters, I believe. That was a good show too. I remember Just the 10 of Us.
Just the 10 of Us actually didn't start on this night. It started later. On this night, there was some other special show that
there was always like a 4th show that they would try and float, and a lot of them didn't make it. A lot of them would just be like one pilots, and then they'd can it. But Full House, Family Matters, Perfect Strangers, that is a solid block of television there.
And it was like this 2-hour event.
Yep.
And I remember sitting, like for us, it was always 7 to 9. I remember the first time I lived in Eastern time zone. I always felt so weird because I grew up with like primetime TV being 7 to 9.
Yeah, not 8 to 10.
Not 8 to 10.
Correct.
8 to 10 felt so weird and late for me. But anyway, 7 to 9. But the way they made it like an event instead of just like 4 shows in a row is in between. They would have these like commercials featuring the actors from all the shows that would like tie
promote the other shows.
Almost like hosting the 2-hour event.
Those are
like,
fun.
Here's coming up. Yeah, and it tied it all together.
Yeah, Balky and Larry did a bunch of those, and you'd have other people, in between stitched together. And then just the branding was great. You know, it was like 80s colors and shapes and in
How
the
long
field.
did TGIF? So it started in 1989 at the end in the fall, and it ended sometime in the 90s, I think, right?
Oh, so the first run of TGIF was from 1989 to 2000.
Oh, 2000.
Yes, and then it comes back. Then there was a second run in 2003, and then they tried it again in 2018.
By 2018, it wouldn't have aired the same way because 2018 is well into streaming. And stuff
and
like that.
those 2 runs only lasted like a year or 2.
Okay, so basically
they tried to bring it back, and it didn't really work.
89 to 2000
much
of the 90s. That's like a decade.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing staying power. I mean, it ruled the 90s, absolutely.
Yeah, because it was like a Friday night event. It was fun, especially it was family friendly. The kids could watch, parents, stuff like that.
What did we think about this episode? Here's my first question. Yeah. Did they know how to roller skate coming into this?
Okay, so everything I've read about this episode says that none of the cast knew how to skate before this episode.
Are you kidding?
I believe that, except for Noon. I think Noon knew how to skate because he was doing tricks and one leg.
But Bronson Pinchot really impressed me. If he just learned to do all that stuff with skating, some of it... Fair
point. But here's why I believe that maybe he didn't know before, because if you watch him skate when he's going backward, and I know this because you and I did a fair bit of skating when we were kids, if you watch him going backwards, it's like the beginner's way of backwards skating where you butterfly your legs in and out. He's not doing leg over leg turns in the reverse. He's doing the way everyone learns to skate backward.
He sold it though, like he was
smooth for sure.
Like he learned.
They might have had coaches and had some time to practice.
Yeah. So just like you referenced for the listener, I remember when we were younger.
Yeah.
I don't know how old, but our middle school or the lower school, they offered summer
we both took it
roller skating class at the gym.
I remember
we both
that
would
class.
Go, and I actually learned how to do
tricks.
Learn how to do the crossover, how to actually turn in a circle.
I remember that class. It was in the gymnasium.
Yes.
It was super fun.
And then the next time we went to Rainbow, like I was like, oh my God, I can actually do this.
And let's talk about Rainbow for a second. So
Rainbow
roller skating, listeners, roller skating was a significant part of your hosts, my brother and I's childhood. There was a roller rink on the north side of Chicago called Rainbow, Rainbo, roller rink. And we, for a number of years, would go. Our dad used to take us on the weekends where they had like Saturday.
He used to roller skate.
Yeah,
he
would skate too. But on Saturday and Sunday, like afternoons, late mornings, they had all this children's stuff. They had games in the middle.
Not only did they have
the chicken dance, remember?
But then they had an arcade, which I love. There was video games. You know, you rent your skates, and there was a second smaller skating rink upstairs for less. For beginner
birthday
skaters.
Parties.
And birthday
you could
parties.
rent that out for birthday parties.
I remember I felt a lot safer up there. It took me a long time to get to the bottom big one with the big people.
And they served, and they like sold pizza. It was like this fun place. And the mood of the place was nothing like the rink in this show. It was, I always remember it as like dark with
there
like
was disco ball,
disco lighting, a DJ.
And when music videos were popular, they had a screen that came down and they would play like Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston music
and
videos, like all the popular music.
80s, right?
Great.
And to this day, I was maybe like, you know, I must have been around like
pizza.
7, 8, 9, 10 when in the years when we were going.
Yeah.
And to this day, when I hear certain 80s pop songs, I'm like,
roller skating.
I used to roller skate to this song.
Yeah.
I remember, like, it immediately brings a memory of roller skating to that song. And, and they would do like, now it's time for backward skate, and they would change the song.
And
now
it's
like
time
for couple skate,
right? Or all girls only.
On the Saturdays, they would have like children's characters on stage, like in full costumes, and they would be like, all the kids would gather in the center, and they would do like
the chicken
dance
That was
and different games and weird things. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: could you survive a 10-hour skate-a-thon?
I don't. 10 hours is a lot. Thinking about it now, I mean, at my age now, probably not. Maybe
I do not think I could
20 years ago or something. But I actually went to Rainbow all the way through. I went there in college.
Oh, really?
I went there in college with a friend for a gay skate event.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. It is not there. They closed it. We, in fact, stopped going at some point because it was starting to get a little like.
It's getting a little dicey.
Let's say. Yeah, it started to get a little dicey in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I think at some point we just stopped going, but it's definitely a part of our childhood that I remember
80s,
fondly.
Innocent 80s. It was like the fun place, man.
Roller skating. It was amazing. I loved it.
All right. I mean, so this episode had great physical comedy. I enjoyed the jokes. It was fun for a good season 5 opener. What did our listeners think, sister?
Okay. Our listeners there was one very interesting exchange and then some general comments. So one thing that you and I didn't touch on is something that Nicole Stoner and John Adama, cousin Nicole and cousin John, point out. Nicole writes, I'm a little surprised that Mypos follows some kind of polytheistic religion, since geographically the most dominant religion in the Balkan Peninsula / Mediterranean / Eastern Europe is Eastern Orthodoxy. It was implied that Balki's a Christian in the past Christmas episode, but that's just me over analyzing sitcom logic as usual. Because there's a lot of
gods and furies, and we're going to meet another one next episode.
And cousin John,
deities. Okay,
cousin John agrees with this and writes, Balki also pretty openly discussed the baby Jesus during at least one Christmas episode.
Right.
Generally, Jesus and polytheism don't work together.
Well,
so this is super interesting. We didn't touch on it. The reason I didn't think about this is because I took the Gaboogies as just like a fun Myposian detail.
Like
and
spirits,
I actually don't
agree.
Yes, Jesus and polytheism might be contradictory, but I still think there are a lot of cultures, because Christianity in places like Africa and Asia, like, came by conquer, right? And spread by proselytizers and stuff like that. But a lot of those cultures also kept their pre-existing cultural spiritual beliefs. So in that way, they can exist together. So maybe that's what happened.
Sometimes he describes these things, and it does remind me of like the many Hindu gods they have and the deities that control, or Greek and Roman gods that all had their certain department of expertise.
I think there's like remnants of pre-Christianity.
Listen,
pre-orthodoxy
it's Mypos.
Culture.
You can smash these two together. Anything goes on this crazy island.
Right.
They're unique.
So cousin Nicole also writes, an overall fun episode with great physical comedy using roller skates. You can tell they had fun with this one. I 100% agree. It looks super fun. And cousin Nicole also saw a little fun gag that we missed. She writes, Marianne's camera flash is visible in the right corner of the screen after Larry's barrel wipeout.
Oh, so she has that photo.
It still makes me laugh whenever I rewatch this episode.
She's got a photo of him on the ground, flat, face down. It's great.
Yes. And then we have cousin John with more comments. He writes, imagine living underneath these guys. Roller thongs, exploding pastries, Elvis impressions.
Oh my God, that marching must have been annoying.
Yeah. You know, I've had upstairs neighbors where I'm like, what are they doing up there?
And in your mind, you're like, what could possibly be making that noise?
And
are they dragging a dead body across the living room?
Listen, just before moving back to Chicago, I was in an apartment. I had this upstairs neighbor, and I heard rolling things, but the apartments were tiny because it was it was a studio apartment, and I heard all these like thuds and rolling sounds, and then like marbles dropping on the ground.
Were they bowling?
I don't know what they were doing. I thought, and there were so many times that I wanted to knock on the door, but I don't want to be that person to be like, hey, keep it down. I'm like, literally, the noise is fine. Do what you're doing. I just want to know what it is.
How are you making this noise?
Curious.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a rolling drawer or like, it sounded at times like a pool table, but these were tiny, tiny apartments. I don't know. I never knew I moved out.
It's a good comment because living underneath them, you'd be like, what are they doing now?
What are they doing? And I really did want to knock on the door and just be like totally cool about it. Be like, I'm just super curious.
We'll make that noise.
Why are you doing it at 3 a.m? But back to Cousin John's comments. He also writes, love that each guy gets to demonstrate their skating abilities in very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
That stunt was a good combination of relatively safe and still humiliating.
Yeah.
And he likes the nice little political comment about Washington
and the kaboogies. Yeah.
And then Cousin John always gives us a nice little summary score of the episode. So he writes, I enjoyed this episode. The writers did a decent job of balancing Larry's jealousy with the fact that he actually did some good. It's still fascinating that even when Jennifer is driving the story, she still has zero character development.
Yeah.
And she still doesn't really seem very into Larry. Anyway, he writes, not sure I'd pick this one as the season premiere. Makes me concerned for what's to come.
Uh-oh.
B- as the splendid physical comedy saves this from a C.
Still a good,
interesting.
Still a good score. And this may, they filmed these out of order.
It may not have been,
And
originally.
I don't know how they may not have been the first one they were going to go with, because next week we'll get to, there's some similarities. But whatever. Don't be ridiculous was not said.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
Good thing we have it.
But season 5 does start with an awesome Dimitri appearance. You can see him clearly.
It's the best.
Back
Dimitri's
there.
On the bookshelf. Very simple. Wearing roller skates.
That's all we want. That's
Love
all we want, Dimitri Handler. Well done.
Love it, Dimitri Handler. Give that person a raise.
You could have put on like a fun T-shirt or something, but no. Well, that's sheep on roller skates.
Could have put some barrels underneath.
Barrels. Yeah, you could have made little barrels, put them there.
One
like
barrel underneath. Yeah.
But thank you for the Dimitri on skates.
Yes, we love Dimitri. Okay, now we're at the segment of our show that we call Perfect Strangers Today, or PS Today, in which we talk about how this episode holds up. Would we be able to remake this story today? What things would be different? What do you got, Imran?
This whole thing would be like on YouTube live stream, so you can comment and donate and pledge right there.
You can. This is all about social media. Social media changes this whole episode because
multiple angles.
You don't need pledge papers. You can crowdfund online. You could do a GoFundMe, a Kickstarter.
Influencers in the game, trying to get their base.
You can live stream this. You can make a
Twitch?
reel. Twitch for 10 hours.
In fact, they
would talk about developing photos. His embarrassment would be viral right away.
Right. Instantly, his DMs would be blowing up by like, oh my God, is this you? What a buffoon. You know what? The telethon would be, you have to skate while you're playing an esports game or something. It'd be like skate while you're playing
American
Mario
Ninja
Kart.
Warrior on skates.
That would be the thing.
Parkour skating.
And would they be rollerblading?
Well, so interesting because you said this earlier. I think if it was just a little bit in the future, it would have been rollerblading. It had its heyday. But now, actually, the old school quad, like, jam skating is a thing that's getting, it's always been a thing. It's not that it's coming back. It's always been a thing.
Yeah.
Because with the advent of social media, it's becoming more known about, talked about. It's always been a thing in like Black American culture where you're jam skating, you're dancing. I follow a bunch of cool skating reels.
There's a history of these businesses, right? That certain people are trying to keep alive. A lot of them had to shut down, especially during pandemic.
That's right.
But it has not gone away, and it looks like a lot of fun, and there's a lot of pride in it still.
I see these reels, and I want to go skating again. I don't know where to go skating in Chicago anymore.
It's like a throwback.
If anyone knows.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I love seeing that it's still alive and well. Same as breakdancing never really went away. People still breakdance.
But it's coming. Everything's coming back.
Jam skating. There's a couple of great documentaries and TV shows you can watch right now about that,
and a couple good people to follow on Instagram.
It's fascinating. It's very cool. So
So the setup would be a little bit different, but presumably you could still have a competition. You don't hear much about skate-a-thons, but it would be like this throwback event that people would get into. I think I probably wouldn't last 10 hours these days.
Long time.
That's a long time. You'd have to train for it.
Yeah. A marathon, it takes a lot longer too. Well, for some people, could take 20 hours.
4 hours. But
10 hours of skating in a circle, I get very dizzy.
But the premise would hold up. He would try to.
There's still fundraising for
good
good cause.
The jokes would be a little bit different if you involve social media.
You could still use the Big Brothers. It's still a relevant charity.
And you could still have jealousy, and you could still lie.
You have Grant on IG skating all fancy, and then Larry would have to like deep fake a roller skating video to prove to Jennifer
that
she'd be like, "How come I never seen you post about it?"
Appleton.
Wheels. This is from back in the day. Wheels.
Yeah,
that's how they'd have to get that done.
So it kind of could get updated a little bit, but we could still make this.
Absolutely. Join us next week, listener. What happens? Well, there's an accident. There's another Larry lie. And a new Myposian ritual chant to sing along with.
Similar.
Very catchy chant next week. I kind of remembered it. I didn't, but then I started singing it right after I watched the episode.
I haven't watched it yet. I'll let you know next week.
In the meantime, you can support the show in a number of ways. One way is to buy us a virtual coffee. Visit our website, danceofjoypod.com/support, and there's a buy us a coffee button there. All proceeds go back into the show. We appreciate any little tip you can give back if we make you remember a fond time in your childhood when Perfect Strangers was on with Full House and Family Matters. First time.
Yeah.
Remember the first time you watched TGIF?
Oh, those were the days. And if you can't buy us a coffee, that's totally cool too. But we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get to know you. Stop by, say hi, visit our website, danceofjoypod.com. Right there, you can find all the links to our social media, our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, or you can send us an email at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. Tell us about your skating days in your childhood. What local rink did you go to? Also on our website, you can find all the places where you can hear our podcast. You can like, subscribe, leave us a rating, a review. All of that would help us keep this going and continuing to bring the joy to you. But Imran, what is the most important thing our listeners should do?
Always roller skate backwards when you mean to go forwards. Keep your laces tight. No, the most important thing, of course, share the show with a fellow, what generation? Gen X, Millennial, even the new generation, Gen Z, the generation that grew up with it and generation that can discover that this amazing show is still here to make you laugh and make you feel good.
Talk about it at the roller rink.
Yes, throw it up on the screen at the roller rink if those are still around.
Roller skate to ragtimey music.
Dude, I want to roller skate to the Perfect Strangers theme song.
Yes.
Thank you for listening, listener. And now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy. We do the dance of joy.
Hey, 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 hey.